Thank you, Sean. And it's Bank Holiday Monday here on Destination Uri, all across the north of this great island of ours. Well, the political entity that is Northern Ireland, that's where they're holidaying today. That's where we're holidaying today. The north, of course, is up in Donegal as well, isn't it? But they're in the Republic, so they don't have a bank holiday today. This is my good friend, Benny McKay. Hello, Benny McKay. How are you?
Rowan, how you doing?
You have the most magnificent pair of shafts that I've ever seen in a man. I'd hate to be getting a knee on the goolies with those knees, I tell you.
Well, those knees delivered many a knee in the goolies on the hurling field.
I know right well, for goodness sake. And your father, God be good to him and love him. Tom, he was a great, great man of Shamrocks. He was down there with us, and he was always helpful and always encouraging us.
He was steeped in the club. He just loved it.
Loved every minute of it.
Loved the people.
In the days when they were the marshes and not Park Esler,
yeah,
those were great. In many, many ways, they were better days. I know it's great what has happened. There's no denying that. Yeah. But there was a kind of intimacy and a warmth there in those days that all of the concrete and steel of the stands has maybe taken away.
It has, yet I suppose in its own way, like I can remember, and it's funny, I would have preferred the field to remain a park in Uri Park rather than Esler Park. Even Father Esler wanted it that way because he wanted it because that many people contributed to it.
Yeah, there's so many of us. You know, fewer people these days would even know who Father Esler was. Yeah. And they'd have to think hard about it and whatever. But he was a great man.
I thought they might have named the stand after him, which, would have been more in keeping, but kept a park in Uri Park.
Uri Park, absolutely. But these things happen and they're done and dusted.
The story actually, my dad used to take me down when they were actually laying out the field. Yeah. And I was only a nipper at the time, and he had to keep a beady eye on me, and they had a horse with a slipe taking the stones up the field. And my father used to say, I said I contributed to, at least I contributed to the field being there. He says, son, you didn't. He says, you took the stones of the slipe and threw them back onto the field.
I'm sure you didn't, but in my mind, I really believe that your dear father ought to have gone to heaven wearing the coat that he wore down at the marshes.
Big heavy coat.
The heavy, long coat with the belt around the middle. How long has he gone now, Benny?
He's gone about 16 years, Rowan.
16 years.
He was a wonderful individual. I always remember Eamon Traynor told the story that my father came out one night, it was pouring rain. At that time, very few people had telephones.
Yes.
And he came out to the meadow to tell him that the match was off, and Eamon couldn't believe this because it was raining cats and dogs, and already Trainor's father took him in and gave him a cup of tea and says, Tommy, my dad came out on a bike and he was absolutely soaked to the skin, just to tell the fella he didn't want them turning up at the field and no game.
God love him. God love him. Just want to tell Sean something. Sean, we'll if you when we come to music next, it'll be Katie Mellowa, all right? Not the band James, because I have a story to tell the people about the band James, and I'll share it with you. I was on the train coming from Dublin on Saturday, the 1:20 train. I'd gone up in the early train, gone to the National Gallery, took in a lovely easy time there, went to my favourite pen shop and got my bits and pieces and back and all the rest of it. And on this train, two people, a man in his early 40s, I would have thought, his wife somewhat younger, he was English, she was Portuguese. And I just sensed that they were show business people. And we got into a conversation.
Right.
And indeed they were. They'd done, the band that he belonged to was founded in Manchester, had sold 25 million records all over the world. It was a band called James, would you believe. And they'd done a gig in Temple Bar the night before, and they were heading up to Belfast to do a gig on the Saturday night in Belfast. So we got into a huge conversation. Lots and lots of interesting things emerging and whatever. But isn't it wonderful how you can bump into people on trains?
This is it, in the most unusual of places, and you never think of meeting,
Never. And goodness gracious, I didn't know who they were, but they were so clear. They were really genuinely nice and good people. Yeah. So your day today is in the mountains.
I'm in the mountains. We're heading for Binion.
Binion. And tell people about Binion. What's it like?
Binion, beautiful mountain. It's the They reckon it's the second only onto Donard in the Mourns, but it's a lovely climb. I love the rock formation, Rowan, when you get up there. It's a long gradual access up to the top, and but there's a beautiful rock formation when you get up there. It's like being in sort of in space, you know.
Wow.
And, but if you have an old mist just sort of seeping down there on it, you can conjure up all sorts of figures and, you know, legends of the past sort of creeping out of the mist.
We deserve as much conjuring up as possible, because we have been at the coalface for many lifetimes. Too many years. So all the conjuring and mists and legends we can get at the moment, we'll take them all.
Yeah.
I would think indubitably. Well, that was John Donnelly's great one, indubitably. He said, indubitably.
You're talking about your story to Dublin. It happened just last year. It happened to myself, the good lady.
Does she still make the lovely lamb casserole?
She does indeed.
Wow.
Beautiful lamb casserole.
I recommend this to you. I'm going to tell you the recipe at another time.
But we were going up to Dublin, got the Enterprise, went up out of the station, got the Lewis out to the National Museum there at Collins's Barracks.
Yeah, the stop before Euston.
Yeah, and we stopped into the National Museum, had a wonderful day, great crack going round it. Finished up, and we decided to go for a meal. Of course, Aunt slips into Arnott's, so we had the meal in Arnott's, and when she was in there, shopping was on the list. So I pulled the paper out, and she did her bit of shopping, and we came back out. And we're heading down onto Collins Street, and we came to Cleary's. And this massive sale was on in Cleary's, so she decided to go in there, and I said, listen, I'm not going in there. I tell you what, I'll let you go in there and meet you in 2 hours under the famous Cleary's clock.
Wow, many's the romance has been kindled there, I tell you.
But as I said, meet you in 2 hours. So I went round, did a quick wee nifty up to Parnell's monument. Big Jim Larkin was standing
with arms out
in the centre of the state. Had a look at him. Into the GPO there was Cuchulainn and the Raven on his shoulder.
On his shoulder.
And dodged down the street again to Daniel O'Connell's monument.
There he was,
looking benignly on the people of Ireland.
Indeed, with a pigeon on his head.
That he loved, and all the women that
he loved. He loved indeed.
But came over and decided to go down onto the Liffey. There's a boardwalk now right
there
along
is, it's lovely there,
It's absolutely beautiful. And there's about 70 or 80 people milling there when I went down. I said, God, that's a big crowd. And so I was in amongst them, and I decided to sit down, and it was a March day, and pulled the coat up around me.
Oh, yeah.
And I was sitting there, and I was thinking of Pete St. John's song about the big glass cages growing up along the quay.
Yeah.
And it's reminiscent of Dublin City in the rare old times. God, and I closed my eyes, and I just had went back like this, and a fella tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked up, and he handed me soup and sandwiches.
Are you joking?
This is the truth. He handed me soup and sandwiches, and I looked up sort of startled, and he turned around, and there on the back was written Samaritans. I was in amongst the down and out of Dublin.
Yeah. That's amazing. I've actually been lovingly accosted on occasions by fellows who want to give me a piece of advice from Jesus, and it's all written down. And I said, with the greatest gentleness, I say, no, thank you. I have found Jesus in my own way already. May I tell you all about him? And they go scurrying off, giving more out. But I think they just need to hand these things out. U3A, you were the founding chairman of the University of the Third Age in Newry.
I did. For my sins, I started along with a whole lot of other people, and we opened up our first premises, which was in Catherine Street. Danny Kennedy actually opened it for us.
It was modest then.
It was modest then, a small house, and we did big Charlie McGeown did the art, and Ed Hearn, the teacher from the college, a great man. He did French and all the different little things that we had in. But one of the things, Rowan, the most important thing about the U3A is companionship. I noticed a lot of people who had maybe their loved ones had died, and they were living in the house on their own. They were glad to come down, even if it was just to talk to somebody and have a bit of crack. You know, forgetting even about all the different things that we offered, the programs and that. Yeah. But they were glad of companionship.
You see, it's interesting that because we take companionship for granted.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in pre-death training, an apprenticeship for passing on, because I live alone at the moment, you know, and I've got used to it. I really don't mind it. But for an awful lot of people who have been very, very close all of their lives to another human being, and that human being goes, it becomes an intolerable burden, I think. Yeah, it would indeed.
That was one of the wee things that I said, God, look at the benefit that gives to an awful lot of people. And, well, look at UTA continued on with many chairpersons. The last one is just out, Pat Cunningham. When Pat went out, they were just hitting on 700 members. And at the moment, we're in the old Abbey School, the old Abbey Christian Brothers, but the room there, they're suffering from not enough room. And I was hoping that the council maybe in their, you know, the whole park, the whole Abbey Park there, the secondary school, and eventually the primary school, is all going to become idle. And part of it would be ideal for the U3A.
Yeah, it would. But I mean, that's now, I don't think that's any law. It's not in the council's call. I
know it's not in
it's owned by somebody else, and it's now up for sale. So it's going to be sold to the highest bidder, obviously.
Well, from what I know, it's owned by a trusteeship of the Christian Brothers, plus the government has a say in it. They have the Ministry of Education does have a say in it, and I would hate to feel that I think you know, if the council was far-seeing, which they're not at times, they could put a lovely, they're getting part of the park. They can make, and you know, they're talking about Kilbrony being the jewel in the crown. They could make that park
a real city centre,
a city centre, and a place of dynamism, you know, that they could open it up to the likes of ourselves. And there's no community centre for Hennessy Park. I remember Brenton Kern in the Democrat twice had articles in about how there's nothing for the people of O'Neill Avenue and Hennessy Park. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So the good fun of today, are you a numerous band of brothers and sisters when you go out?
Well, we normally from about 10 down to maybe 4. We're advertising for a Nora Batty at the moment.
You were advertising for a Nora Batty. Wow. 10 years ago when I used to go walking.
But the two ladies that we have, they won't wear the nylons, you know, with the running and the ladder. They have to have that sort of
and a pinny. And the hair done in rollers. Yeah. We're being hideously politically incorrect. We apologise to all
ladies and
all ladies out there, because it's what we're good at.
We have two ladies that walk with us, Eleanor Kinney and Geraldine Donaghy, and they're great. And they're great company. And
that's all good stuff. So the U3A is still recruiting.
U3 they had their opening day was last Monday, and I'm not joking you. The crowds of people come in there to sign on for different courses, and it was unbelievable. And again, it's going to be 700 plus this year.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, it's an extraordinary enough thing. I had, and you would be in this ilk as well, because inside yourself you feel very young, you know. Inside myself I feel very, very young. The way I feel now, I have no doubt that I live to be 120. You know. But I mean, the point is this.
That's right. You have to have that sort of...
Here's the point. I got the shock of my life a couple of months back when the oldest man in the world died at 120.
Right.
So here am I aspiring with great ease to reach 120, and the oldest man in the world is 120. So maybe I've got to rethink all of that, you know.
Maybe cut your a wee bit shorter.
Absolutely, maybe. But we'll not do that. We'll be forced to do that. We'll be on the back foot. What's the story of the stick? That'll help you on the mountain.
Yeah, Danny Dorn, God love him. Danny's a great man. He loves wood and things like that.
He does.
I was out one time in Ypres doing a concert in Belgium. And Danny was there with us, and we're in actually the big battlefield where the people were lost during the war, and we're in this copse, and Danny cut that out of it. And
he cut that out in Ypres.
And in Ypres, made it nice. He says, "Benny, that will do you lovely on the mountains," and it just suits me.
Wow, it suits perfectly. Yeah. Will you take some food with you out and have a picnic?
I did. Like Napoleon says, the army marches on its stomach. As you can see,
and an ample stomach it is, dear boy.
Ample stomach it is.
How do you fancy Katie Melua? Shall we play her for you?
I love Katie Melua. I love her, that one she does about the bicycles.
Yeah, that's not the one I've chosen, unfortunately. I've put the music in earlier, but it's like, Sean, we'll go with it and we'll see what we get.